We're good? Close enough? I just want to thank you all for being here on behalf of Paul and Craig's family, Clark and Robin. It's very fitting that we're here at the Yacht Club because, of course, we had so much fun over the years at the Yacht Club. And I know that if Craig was here, he'd be right up front because he always liked to be right close to the action. He would push all of you out of the way to get here. And if his cell phone rang, he would definitely answer it. And it would probably be Nancy. So thank you all for coming. It's a great, huge testament to him that you're all here. So now I have to read. As I thought about what I wanted to say today, I realized I was not going to be able to sum up Craig's entire life, his entire 65 years. It's not that I didn't know him, I knew him so well. And it's not like I don't remember our time together. What a friend. So much fun, so many laughs, fantastic trips. We traveled in India, we went skiing together in Cortina. For his 60th birthday, he had dinner for 20 at the Ivy in London. Golden moments from a gilded life. When I close my eyes and think of that life, I get such a beautiful summer feeling. It's really a Gambier Island feeling. That smile he had when he was at the wheel of his boat, we all know it. A hike, a swim, a cold beer, a Saturday paper. And let us not forget the sharp eye on the water coming out of the tap, or the broom that was always underfoot while you were trying to cook. I would gladly conserve water and trip over brooms for the rest of my life if it meant more long summer days at Gambier with Craig. I remember it all. It's just that when Craig was diagnosed with ALS, it was as if life started all over again from zero. And we lived a whole other lifetime in the last 3 years. And that's the life that feels most real to me now. I mean, we all know that for the first 60 plus years, Craig had a charmed existence. He was the best company. He was up for anything. I know there are 1,000 stories in this room. But if the measure of a man is how he deals with adversity, the past 3 years revealed Craig's true nature in a way that made the rest of life feel like an opening act. What a man. Immeasurable. I can still remember the phone call from Paul. It was just before Christmas in 2010. Craig had been slurring his words slightly, but it really didn't seem like a big deal. But it turns out it was a big deal. It's hard to imagine a bigger deal. I knew I had to call Craig, but I was dreading it. It's one of those what do you say moments. I mean, this is one of those diseases that many would do anything, including end their own lives, to avoid. And it's hard to find the positive spin, but I shouldn't have worried, because if anyone knows how to put a positive spin on it, it's Craig. And I will never forget what he said to me. He said, "Aynsley, I have been so lucky. And quite honestly, I see this as just another one of life's adventures." And he truly, truly did. The diagnosis did nothing to break Craig's stride. At first, you kind of watched him waiting for some sign that he was actually falling apart, and then eventually you just got used to the idea that this was life, just carrying on. I remember driving down to the river one day with him early on for a dog walk and asking him sort of, now what? What did he want to do with the remainder of his life? I mean, he had the resources and he could do anything he wanted. And he said, "You know, it's funny, other people keep wanting to plan my bucket list. Like, let's go on a safari. Let's rent a house somewhere exotic." And he said, "But what they don't realize is that my life is my bucket list. I just want to spend my days with Paul and my family and my friends and my dogs for as long as I can. That's it, you know, like this, dog walks on the river." I mean, who needs a bucket list when life is already perfect? It's not like he didn't change. Of course he did. His speech slurred, his gait faltered. He lost the ability to swallow and was admitted to VGH for a feeding tube. Eventually, last summer, his breathing became so labored that he made the decision to get a tracheostomy, and he breathed with the help of a ventilator for the rest of his life. But it was as if the more his body gave way, the more his spirit flourished. His eyes got even brighter. His heart got even bigger. His delight seemed only to grow. Anyone who looked at Craig as somehow diminished by this disease was missing the point entirely. Craig only expanded. And the universe rewarded Craig for this radiance by drawing an amazing group of people to his light. Team Craig, you know who you are. What a phenomenal convergence of love and hard work. From Aaron, who never missed a morning shift at the hospital, to Ange, who became a junior respiratory therapist, to Nancy. Let's face it, all Nancy had to do was walk into the room and smile, and her job was done. Craig's brother Clark and sister-in-law Robin were his rocks. His sister Leslie in India was his guide. And everyone else, you know who you are. The cooks, the dishwashers, the dog walkers, the readers, the renovators, the drivers, the party planners, the bunting makers. Yes, we needed a lot of bunting. His nurses, where are they? Oscar and Maria were on the night shift, and Alvin and Christian were with him every day over the last year and a half. I know they're here somewhere. Oh, there they are. You guys, there are no words. They were Craig's interpreters, his entertainers, his friends, our friends. At the end, they were an extension of his very body. They were his hands, they were his words, tireless and loving, and good dancers. And bonus points for being handsome. We all know Craig appreciated it. Oh, and speaking of handsome, this brings us to Paul. Coach, captain, and MVP of Team Craig. My friend, you are the face of courage. You lived the uncertainty and stress of this illness every single day, and you did it with such ferocity and such focus. There is no script for this disease, and just when you think you've got a handle on it, it changes again. And life hangs in the balance, and it must have been terrifying. But you made it up as you went along with so much confidence. Honestly, you had us all fooled. Day in and day out, you did whatever you had to do. And you were the master of every situation, whether it was emergency home surgery or a conga line. Yes, both happened. And you made it look fun, like, don't you all wish you could be me? Grace, humor, utter dignity. You were Craig's front man and his defender to the death. I know you'll never forgive me for saying this, but what the hell? I have the microphone. You were his hero. You gave him the life he so wanted to live. Craig never gave an inch. He was always turned out in beautiful clothes. He was always distinguished. He was always funny, sharp, demanding. He always wanted the lighting to be perfect. He was unstoppable. Before being released from the hospital post-tracheostomy, he had many questions for his medical team, not least of which was how soon could he resume international travel, because, you know, he has a flat he needs to get to in London, he has friends expecting him in Rome, and don't worry, they have an elevator and we've measured it. And when you picture this scene, you have to consider the fact that living with a trach and a ventilator is kind of a big deal. Only 5% of ALS patients choose to do it, and only a very small number of those are able to live at home. Anyway, so I think it's safe to say that he was probably the only one planning a trip to Europe. Craig never did return to international travel, but it didn't matter. The party never stopped. We danced, we laughed, we gossiped. And he lived. In the month before his death, he was feted all over town. He went boating, and he saw Gambier one last time. He was flown to Tofino on a private plane for lunch, a little roll on Chesterman Beach. Honestly, it was pretty hard to keep up with Craig. He spent his days as he wanted with Paul and his family and his friends and his dog. And walks by the river were still perfect. What a life. What an adventure. Craig was always such a doer, whether it was skiing or sailing or fishing or an art opening or a party or a fun-sounding trip. He was the guy that said, yeah, let's do it, come on. He was a man in forward motion. Even in his power chair, he was hell on wheels. But eventually the physical effort was too big. He was still larger than life. He was a spirit that would not be bound. But he was ready to let his body go. And at the end, he was calm, he was sure, and he was still pure Craig. He told his palliative team that he'd like to wear his own pajamas, not the standard issue hospital gown. And they said, oh, okay, we'll check and see if that's okay. And ever keen to press his case and have the last word, he said, you know, they are from Savile Row. Truth. And on the last day of his life, he rolled into the hospital, radiant as ever, in his perfectly pressed pajamas, cashmere, with his entourage, like the rock star he was. What a man. Those winking eyes, all that mischief, and all that love. Oh, yeah, I'm going to give Craig the last word.
Love you, bye, and dear moo, chow, turtles, poodles, turtles, poodles, ha, 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 ha.
Thank you, guys. I know, as I said, there must be 1,000 stories, and if there's anyone else who wants to say something, I know he had a long life before the last 3 years, so please come up and feel free to speak.
First, somebody get Aynsley a glass of wine.
No, I want a gin and tonic.